do not need to be accessed at all time. You're not an on-call human. You're not. You're not supposed to be on call. 5 months ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD, unofficially, and then officially shortly thereafter. Something that I have been dealing with and have been kind of figuring out behind the scenes. It has explained a lot of things about my life. Gaming over these past, I'd say, a couple of months has been just, as the kids say, hitting different. Recently, I've been playing through a game called Elden Ring, a little itty-bitty game called Elden Ring, and I feel like it is the video game equivalent of ADHD medication. I know, that is a crazy statement. A crazy one that I'm going to unpack here. Just let me grab my coffee. Let me take it back a step. I have always struggled with feeling a sense of belonging, a sense of feeling understood. I struggled with it mainly because I always felt like I wasn't feeling things. Isn't that weird? I feel like I'm not feeling things. I'd be in experiences, and these experiences, I would feel like I am putting on a face to try to react the way that those around me. Something that I have realized over the years that a skill that I have is I'm very, very good at adapting to my surroundings. Whether it's a bunch of people talking about sports, I may not know a thing about the sport, but throughout the conversation, I'll be able to pick up on different different words, different ideas, draw from some information that I've had over the past, I've encountered at some points, and pretty much get to a point where I can have a conversation about the topic enough to where I can fake it, use ambiguous enough language, answer questions that don't require follow-up questions or follow-up answers, and just get about it that way. This is something I've always been able to do, something I just thought was a gift of conversationalism, but I didn't know what it was. Turns out there's a name for this type of behavior. There's a name for a person who tries to cover up the fact that they either A, feel like they don't belong, B, don't understand, or C, are acting. This term is called masking, so I've been told. This term gets, thrown around in other areas too. I'm not saying thrown around in a negative sense. I'm just saying it's not the only place that you hear this word. But essentially the idea is you put on a persona that helps you hide. You put on a mask. Ironically, growing up, one of my favorite movies was The Mask. Wonder if that has anything to do with anything. It doesn't. That movie did not age well. Go ahead and go and watch it right now. If you've watched it before, great. If you haven't, I don't recommend watching it again. It really didn't age that well. At any rate, I've been playing through Elden Ring. Elden Ring has been giving me an experience that I've talked about here before already, but it's been giving me a lot to think about. There's been, a lot of introspective thinking. There's been this allegory between life and sticking to something and following through. But the real thing that is getting me thinking is kind of in a practical stance. You see, over the past, my whole life, I've always found myself drawn to video games, but then having had an issue with the task-oriented nature of video games. I start hundreds. I could probably list maybe over the 36 years of me being alive, probably the 30 of which I've been playing video games. I could list for you the 1.5 to 2 dozen that I have rolled credits on. This is because gaming for me has this feeling that at the beginning feels magical and mystical and wonderful, but as time goes on, I feel more and more like it's a job. Especially modern games that are coming out now. I mean, back in the day, games were very challenging. I would get strategy guides, and that did help get through it. But then, as time goes on, strategy guides and all that stuff just becomes more and more cumbersome. Gaming, I've never had a problem starting a game. I can start a game probably better than any of you can start a game. Finishing a game has always been a problem. Recently, I finished Elden Ring. Talked about it in a video, and that game for me had a lot of thoughts about it. I am currently going through the DLC. I went back and I defeated the main boss, Melania, that I wanted to defeat, and then I have now cracked into the DLC. Wasn't going to stream it. I'm streaming it. I'm enjoying it. I am very much so enjoying it. But something that it is helping me understand is my brain. As someone who has struggled my whole life with undiagnosed ADHD, later to find out that it was indeed ADHD, and now is going through the process of figuring out how to live life alongside this process of this brain thing, I seek out ways to not only understand myself more, but to understand how to navigate life more. There's a chemical thing going on in my brain with ADHD. I'm not going to get into all the science behind it, but there's also a social thing that happens in my brain. Something that I've always struggled with, as I stated, was belonging. And the reason why the struggle was with belonging is because I just wanted to be able to do something normally. I just wanted to be able to actually complete something. I wanted for people to look at me in the way that I acted and not think, why does he keep doing this weird thing? Why is he not finishing this? Why? Because my whole life I've always been looked at as someone who, oh yeah, here goes JD, just doing stuff and changing again and again and again. Something it's a curse, really. It really is. One of the benefits to this brain shift is the fact that I can adapt on the fly. I can get really excited and understand something very quickly. I can learn something very, very fast and get good. Elden Ring, for someone with ADHD, is spectacular. The game itself is challenging. It's very challenging. It's not hard. It's challenging. And I use that lingo a lot more as I've been getting older because I think that saying something is hard would insinuate that the task or whatever it may be itself has been created to just be a problem. This is so hard. But when something is challenging, that means that the purpose of that thing is to overcome it, right? It is a challenge. It is supposed to be something that creates an element of, I got to work harder at this, I got to figure out how to do this, I have to overcome this. But when you actually choose to call something challenging over hard, you aren't giving it a full stop. You're giving it, you're creating a journey, so to speak. And so with Elden Ring, some people are like, the game is just too hard for me. I would suggest that maybe, just maybe, it's not that the game is too hard for you, that it's too challenging, that maybe the game itself and the gameplay that is required, because the game just requires you to play it a certain way. You can start it however you want, but you have to learn how to actually play it. Let me give you an example. Imagine, if you will, you sit down to play a game of chess. Simple old chess. Bunch of pieces there that do different things. Different pieces can move in different directions, and all you do is go, I will only play chess if I am just going to use the front line, the pawns. They can only move forward, and not only can they only move forward, but they can, move side to side to attack or whatever it may be. They can only attack diagonally. The first move, you can maybe take 2 steps, whatever it may be. That's all you're gonna do. You don't ever use any other pieces. You never learn the game. And every single time you go to play chess, you might get good enough at starting the game. But the second you start to play up against an opponent that has actual understanding of the way that the game works, they easily will destroy you. That's how it is in Elden Ring. It's very simple. At first, you might be able to get away with just running and smacking things around a little bit. But very quickly do you learn that bosses, that larger enemies, and anything in between, they require a specific level of understanding of how to approach them. You can still get creative though, for sure. Just like in chess, you can figure out a different way to move the pieces around and how you want to do it, but it's similar that way. The reason why I bring this up is because as someone who struggles with ADHD in some ways and now is learning how to live with it, the game itself, Elden Ring that is, it allows me to hyperfixate on something and then it changes. It allows me to get good at something and then it changes. And I have to take all of the skills that I have just acquired and I have to apply them to a new situation. I have to understand with the first boss, they're gonna run slow and then quickly for a second and then slow again. And then they're gonna become staggered at a certain point, and in becoming staggered, I can attack in a different way, and we're good. This is something that for my brain has been so phenomenal. I would suggest anyone to try the game and understand when you go into it, the game is going to allow you to do whatever you want. But one thing you have to honestly do is just learn. For me, learning has never been an issue. I love learning. I love learning new things. I love understanding things. I love actually taking in information and distilling it. That part is great. The problem that ends up happening is putting the rubber to the road. How can I take the information that I've just ingested and put it somewhere? Whether it's in a specific craft, a hobby, I don't know. How can I do it? Dude, let me tell you, like, this game forces you to take information and then use it properly. That's the thing, dude. Like, you have to take in the information and go, okay, how can I distill this? How can I use all of the information from the specific enemy and then apply it to this? And this is how it works. This is why I like Donkey Kong Country so much. Yeah, Donkey Kong Country. Because with Donkey Kong Country, it's the same thing. It'll tell you, okay, this boss, you have to do this way, you have to move, and you have to arc out of the barrel this way. And then 6 or 7 levels later, there's no inference that you're supposed to move in a specific direction. We have 2 barrels facing outward, and as you launch out, obviously you would fall off. You can hold the D-pad to the right, and you'll launch out and then arc into the other one. It has bananas to teach you to do it, or other bananas pointing in a specific direction, which is super cool that they do it that way. They also have bananas that just say A, which you're now just, oh, I have to press A. But later in the game, it doesn't tell you all this stuff. Subtly, they tell you how to do things. This is a perfect example of taking in information, ingesting it, and then applying it later. This kind of way of gaming for me has proved itself to be extremely, extremely fun, because it's forcing me as someone who has a hard time getting through things that become monotonous to now call back on information I've learned and apply it to new circumstances. Oh, I wonder if I can double jump in this area and then sidestep and then attack to try to use that as an additional jump. Well, I wonder if in Mario Odyssey I can throw my hat, jump off the hat, jump again, throw again to extend the leap to get to a further spot. Change direction, go up higher, jump off the wall. This type of experimentation, this type of allowance for for the gamer is something that I didn't realize I needed as much. And as I take something as complex in nature as Elden Ring, and I start to look at all the games that I've found myself coming back to, whether it's Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, any of these types of titles, there is a theme there that I am realizing is so powerful. It is the game empowering you to use what you've learned to play the game. Let me tell you, one of the biggest things that I'm realizing just as I'm talking now is that I have been masking when it comes to my interest in specific genres. At the beginning of the year, I declared I want to do the Final Fantasy Challenge. And honestly, a lot of that has to do with me wanting to fit in. It's normal to play games like Final Fantasy. It's normal to like JRPGs. It's normal to fill in the blank. But what excites me isn't, I'm realizing, playing through some of these titles. I played through it Final Fantasy 1, it was a good experience. Final Fantasy 2, it's not a bad experience. I'm not liking it as much as I was the first, but I don't think it's 2 that's the problem. I think it's the genre. I like turn-based RPGs because it is as close as I can get to taking something you learn and applying it in that form, but still it is just not complex enough. I think that as far as the JRPG is concerned, some of my favorites growing up are my favorites in that genre, but if I was to take a format that I actually do enjoy, it's going to be odd to say, but it's Pokemon. Pokemon is like chess, understanding, this Pokemon has a specific vulnerability, I need to do this, exploit that, push here, and I am starting to play Pokemon more, and it's actually kind of exciting me because I'm taking the electric type and I'm doing this and I'm trying to utilize the abilities and the weaknesses. These are things that exist, yes, in the Final Fantasy series, but I find more excitement in something like Pokemon or Octopath Traveler because it is giving you information. It is allowing freedom of choice. But those choices, you have to remember why you made them and how to utilize that information later. Elden Ring is, I'm not going to say this definitively because I don't think that it's true on paper. I don't think I can say Elden Ring is curing my ADHD. But I will say that as far as someone who has struggled greatly with decisions and fitting in and feeling like I belong, Elden Ring has for the first time given me hope in gaming. I've played games I've liked, but I've never exited games feeling hope. Elden Ring, the game where you are literally called the Tarnished, the Maidenless. The world is literally eating itself alive. Yes, it is falling apart. It is imploding. It's on fire half the time. And the beasts, they hate you. I have hope. It has nothing to do with the story. The story is very sad. Very sad. It's that the game makes me feel like I can. The game makes me feel like I'm supposed to. And the game empowers me and doesn't insult me by saying, go here, now, please. I didn't realize that I gravitated towards this style of gaming as much until I played it. I have sworn off Elden Ring my whole life. That's a really big statement. I have sworn off Elden Ring since it's come out. Played it once, I was like, I'm never going to play it. It's not for me. Not really the best idea. I think I definitely got ahead of myself on that one. It's fine. But the big thing that I am taking away from this is that it is teaching me about myself that I can finish tasks. I can stay on task. And it has nothing to do with, it's because it's exciting. Because the game itself is, yes, it's very exciting. It's fun. But it's because it's empowering me. There's so many things out there that demand your attention. Like literally demand your attention. A new thing that I did recently that I have been adjusting to, because it's really more an adjustment to everybody in my life than it is to me, is I have decided to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. You know how they say you're addicted to your phone? Turns out you're not as addicted to your phone as you think you are if you have no reason to look at it. It is really easy to grab your phone when there is a notification, and then you go from, I got a text message, to 4 hours later, you're 16 rabbit holes deep into the TikTok algorithm. Very easy. But what happens if you don't get any notifications? What happens if your phone never goes off? I would challenge all of you to think about it, not to do it, to think about it. Can you definitively say that you need to be accessed at all times, every moment of the day, always? How did my parents do it? How? How were they capable of getting through the day without having a phone on them? You know, you see these videos of 2000 versus today, and kids are happy, smiling, looking around outside. They can hear the rain, and they look at the rain, and now it doesn't happen. It's not there. I've talked about it before. I'm not going to blame technology and my ADHD on technology, because I know that ADHD is a chemical thing that goes on, right? It's not just that. But I will say that as someone who struggles with this attention distribution, right? That's more of what attention allocation. I don't know if the word deficit is one I would consider, because I would almost guarantee that I have more attention in certain areas than the average Joe or Jane. I probably can listen to a neuroscientist talk about the body and the brain and how it functions for much longer than a lot of people. I adore it. I can listen to a exercise scientist talk about the human body and its way of moving for 10 hours straight. And using science speak, not layman's terms. I prefer the scientific words. And I can sit there captivated. I can leave the lecture with 0 notes and borderline 100% retention. I would argue that it's not a deficit in my attention, but rather a distribution issue. Well, what happens when the disruptors in our lives get removed? What happens when anything that would potentially get in the way of a continuous thought gets eliminated? Turns out, life gets a lot better. And something with Elden Ring that I've realized is I've been streaming it. Well, what happens when you stream games? You're continuously playing it for an audience, there's an obligation to continue the game. There's an obligation to continue playing. There isn't an interruption at all times telling you, hey, you got to go and do XYZ, think about XYZ. Or even worse yet, you have an email from Wayfair about a sale. Forget you, Wayfair. I don't care about your sales. I don't need patio furniture. I don't. And to all of the companies out there telling me about your sale, I don't need anything. I don't need anything. We don't need anything. We're fine. We're good. We're really good. What would happen if the technology you interacted with, you chose to interact with it first? There's been such a push for AI, and AI in terms of efficiency. Let me finish your sentence for you. How annoying is it when someone finishes your sentence for you? I'm sorry, I will do that though, because that is my predisposition. I will finish your sentences because you don't think fast enough. That's a problem that some of us with ADHD might have. We might finish your sentence because that's how our brains work. They work so efficiently that we know what you're going to say before you've finished saying it. And sometimes we just can't wait for you to finish the thought. You know, it happens. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be a know-it-all, but I just know where you're going. And I want to get there before you. Because then we can move on to something else, you know? Anyway, what would happen if you got all of your decision-making power back? AI in this push for this like hyper-efficient way of interacting with everything is, for me, I'm realizing probably the most damaging part of my daily development. My car knows where I need to go before I go there. Not mine personally, because I don't purchase super smart cars. My phone knows about the next place. And the convenience, sure. Hey, there's going to be traffic, so make sure that you don't take this road. All right, I will. I will make sure I don't take that road. But what if I baked into my morning routine, hey, check traffic. Check the route. Yes, it wastes time that you could be spending doing something else. And I'm not suggesting that the life that I'm talking about here is for everyone. It's just for people who maybe want to be happy again. See what I did there? That's called a backhanded comment. I learned it from my family. I think that we might be doing it wrong. We might be doing it wrong. I really do. I think that there has been this huge, weird push for hyper-efficiency. And what happens if you don't need to ever make a decision again because everything makes decisions for you? What happens when you get back those 4, 5, 6 minutes over the course of the next, 10 years, and now you have additional time on your hands? What did you lose? You lost the ability to now, with all this time, make decisions on what you want to do. What happens when everything you think you like, you realize you didn't like? You've just been told you liked it. That kind of sucks. This is exactly what I went through. This is like the awakening I had, right? Talk about waking up, dude. Some people in the political world will be like, oh, dude, they finally woke up, whatever it may be. Nah, dude, I'm not talking about that nonsense. What I'm talking about is this. What happens when you just look up? Look past the top of the screen. I know it seems weird from a guy who's making a video on the internet, but I've said this before. I have this in podcast form. If you want to just listen to it while you're on a walk looking at nature. If you have YouTube, you can easily just have it press play. You don't have to watch my silly face talk about things. There's no B-roll. I'm just talking. You can just listen. I have nothing to show you. I make coffee. I talk about it sometimes, but there's a reason why these cups are this way. It's a podcast essentially, but it's so that maybe I can relate to some of you. Maybe you hear something and it makes your day better, but the delivery is intentional. It's words, and I move around. Might be interesting looking at from time to time, but it's not supposed to be something that you have to watch. I'd like you to listen to it in entirety, because then YouTube has to pay me a lot of money. They don't. They pay me like a couple $100 a month. But you don't have to sit here and stare at your screen. I struggle with that on a regular basis. I struggle with this back and forth because I think that this machine is breaking us. I have said it before. I will continue to say it. I think that the idea of being plugged in all the time is breaking us. I like video games because video games allow you to do a thing digitally, but it doesn't mean that you have to be a digital entity. It doesn't mean that you have to be invested in the digital ecosystem. Yes, I play on a PC, which is all digital, but it doesn't mean that I have to be completely algorithmically fed nonsense all the time. I can just click on a game and play it. This for me is relieving. It's the reason why I read manga, watch anime, listen to stories, whatever it may be. It's because they, in and of themselves, are complete things. That's huge for me. It's finished. I like manga because it allows me to get the stories for the most part. I've only just started watching anime. Watched Solo Leveling over the course of a weekend, all 20 episodes. It was incredible. I really like that show. It's a good show. I enjoy it. I watched some Dragon Ball as well because it's fun to watch, but realistically I sit here and do this. I have talked about the analog life, and I still strive to find myself a good balance between not being a digital, I don't know how I would even say it, not be someone who's just like, curse the digital world, because there are a lot of benefits here. I would agree. You know, the fact that I can talk to my parents on FaceTime and they live in a different state, but they've watched my kids grow up, is beautiful. I'm not saying technology is all bad, but the way that it interacts with us, I think, has its hooks in. Playing Elden Ring through these past, I guess, month and a half. I'm going to finish the DLC pretty quickly because of how good it is and how much I'm enjoying it. Please, if you'd like to join in those, twitch.tv/JDXCoffee. I do sometimes stream them here on YouTube as well. You know, it's consistently going to be on twitch.tv/JDXCoffee. Inconsistently going to be here on YouTube. And that's just because I'm not 100% sold that dual streaming on this specific channel is the best idea. Just being super straight and honest with you. Just being super straight and honest. But when it comes to this game, it has taught me so much about myself, and is slowly, I think, unraveling some of this gross, like, personal feelings that I've had about myself and my ADHD, which has been beautiful. But most of all, it has been embedding this idea that just experience things, just explore, detach from what you've been attached to, has been so powerful. I've been playing so much Elden Ring, I have not been able to go on the internet and search through YouTube videos. I haven't been able to flip through TikTok. I don't have TikTok. Instagram. I haven't been able to watch YouTube shorts. I literally have spent all my time playing Elden Ring and being with my kids. My life feels so much better. So much better. I don't do these silly plugged in all the time. My phone doesn't go off all day because it's on Do Not Disturb with like 4 contacts that are allowed to get through. I have chosen the people that can contact me at all times. My parents, a couple good buddies, and my wife. That's it. That's it. Everyone else, if they call me, I will miss the call immediately. I'll have to go and check. The way the good Lord intended it. You do not need to be accessed at all time. You're not an on-call human. You're not. You're not supposed to be on call. There's a reason why people that live an on-call life do it for periods out of a time. That's it. Gosh, that was good. That was God-inspired. Yeah, every once in a while the Holy Spirit will hit you with something, dude. Cheers to you, big guy. I have to go pick up my kids. I can come home. I'm gonna hug them for too long. I'm gonna play with them. It's raining outside, which obviously means I'm gonna play Elden Ring tonight. Which happened yesterday because you're seeing this